Gentlemen, birds. We don't know if you're going to hear the birds in post-op, but birds have apparently made a home in the air conditioning unit right outside of Eric's window.
Yep.
And they are really, really loud.
They are
really
loud as hell. They've been having meetings all this week, pretty much all day long. You know, I feel for them in that sense. You know, I think we've all been in jobs where it's just like we feel like we're in endless meetings. These birds have been having endless meetings and conversations all week long. And I wish I knew what they were talking about because they're sure as hell engaged about it. But all I hear is, well, what you might be hearing.
I didn't ask Eric this question, but he made it clear he would not kill the birds. So we're dealing with it, I guess. Welcome to Blueshirt Bandwidth. I'm your host, Joe Fortunato, joined, as always, by Eric the Birdman Cone. It is the 87th episode of this show. I can think of one man who has worn the number 87, Eric.
And there's only one.
Maybe the most vilified Ranger in our lifetime? Right?
I
feel like that's a fair statement to make. A man who, if I recall correctly, cheap-shotted Blair Betts and then was signed to the Rangers the very next year. A man by the name of Donald Brashear.
Donald Brashear is the only Ranger to have worn 87.
I'm trying to think. There is no choice. It is the Donald Brashear episode. We have no say. He's the only selection. I'm trying to think if it's an apt episode. Maybe?
Will it be an apt episode if at some point you say something that makes me so insane that I go Marty McSorley to your Donald Brashear?
Maybe, I guess. I don't think there's anything we're going to talk about that's necessarily going to get us there, but
yeah, I don't think so either, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm also a little sick, so my voice isn't that really sexy, like gravel
kind of husky and in between normal Joe and Joe as if he's trying to sound like Harvey Firestein.
Correct. Or Peter Griffin when he gets sick and Lois has sex with him all the time because his voice is so gravelly and sexy. Anyway, welcome to the episode. Welcome to the show. Thank you all for your support. BlueshirtBanter.com, $85 a year gets you all your ad-free access to the New York Rangers. $40 a year gets you access to the Discord tier. You can ask questions in our question thread that Eric puts up every single week. You may hear yourself on those questions sprinkled through the show. Just like little sprinkles put on top of a cookie, perhaps.
Just
or
like
ice cream.
Just like little birds tweeting throughout the show.
BlueshirtBanter.com. I said that already. YouTube.com/BlueshirtBanter. Facebook.com/BlueshirtBanter. Please leave us 5 stars and a nice review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get them. Shout out to the guy who was in the comments who asked Eric and I how much money we paid to have our podcast show up at the top of his algorithm. I'm not sure you know how algorithms work, my friend, but that's not how it works. So,
yeah.
But I'm sure you're listening, so thank you for that. I appreciate that. We love all of our listeners, even the stupid ones. Eric, you can see the question thread. I cannot. Is there a question to lead the show off, or are we going with what Chip suggested in our green room text thread?
Oh, maybe we should go with that. Oh, wait, actually, Cronus does have an opening podcast question.
Before we do that,
yep,
we owe the people an apology.
Well, before we get to the apology, because it's actually wait. We will cover that in the next segment.
I don't want Charlie bringing this up.
It's already in there, so like it doesn't matter if you don't want it happening. It's gonna happen.
All right, go ahead, do your thing. Read the question.
Okay. Opening podcast question: if you are asked to fight a random NHL or ex-NHL player, how old would they have to be for you to be confident you'd win? Would it be old enough you'd feel bad for fighting a senior citizen?
Is this a fight to the death?
I don't think it's a fight to the death. I think it's a fight till you believe the theoretical referees in this case would come in and break it up as being over.
All right. I think we should pick a person so that we're both picking the same person. And let's pick the person the show is named after, Donald Brashear.
So how old does Donald Brashear
He's got
have
to
to
be pretty fucking old.
85?
Yeah, I think I'd fight him at 85.
Yeah.
I think I'd
Would
fight
you
him at 80. Yeah.
75?
Now we're getting into like did he keep his health up part of the conversation? I know a couple 75-year-old dudes that are still like spry. I would have to say yes at 75. That might be the last spot I'm super comfortable.
70 is getting dicey for you?
Well, it's just a little bit more dangerous. I don't want to get into the 60s.
Yeah. 60s legitimate could see 60-year-old Donald Brashear beating the shit out of both of us.
Yeah, or at least winning the fight. He's smarter than we are at this.
Yeah,
like if I'm on skates, that's a real problem. If I'm on skates, we may have to go back to the 80-year-old guy. Would I feel bad about beating up that old of a Donald Brashear? No. Why is he dropping the gloves?
No, because it's Donald Brashear.
Yes, but also why are you dropping the gloves with me, Donald Brashear? You know what you did. This is vengeance for Blair Betts. I don't know where Blair Betts is. I have no idea, but I'm telling you right now, he deserves this moment, and I will give it to him. I'm going to say 70. 70 is as low as I would be willing to go comfortably. And even that, maybe 75.
Yeah, I'm a lover, not a fighter, so I'm going to go with 75 here. 75-year-old Donald Brashear.
Yeah, because they're still tough guys. This is not even.
I'm probably still going to the locker room to get repairs after that fight, even with 75-year-old Donald Brashear.
Yeah, and like the problem you run into is if he lands one punch, it's a serious problem.
Yes. Yeah.
I need to be completely confident in being able to bully him to keep him at an arm's length and basically not get punched in the face. And this is a man who did this professionally for a long time. So, like, yeah, not really feeling this idea at all. So, that is my answer.
I agree.
It insists upon itself, Lois.
Just as these birds are just clearly insisting upon themselves.
Yes. All right, bring that son of a bitch Charlie in here.
Yeah, now we can get to what will be
the
apology.
Is it the first thing he mentions?
Yes, and I will let you address it after I get to that part here.
All right, that's fine.
All right. So we have, of course, the podcast Ombudsman Report for Blueshirt Bandwidth, episode 86, where, of course, each week Charlie will listen to the podcast and correct the record on anything that Joe and I get wrong, starting with most interesting personalities. It is astonishing that when considering who should be on the Mount Rushmore of New York Rangers personalities, Sean Avery was never mentioned. During his first stint with the Rangers, Avery came up with a novel method of screening goalies during the first round of the 2008 playoffs. That summer, Avery signed a 4-year contract with the Dallas Stars. Just 23 games into his tenure, Avery decided to take a shot at Dion Phaneuf for dating his ex-girlfriend, Alicia Cuthbert, better known to many of you, I'm sure, as Kim Bauer from 24, prior to a morning skate. Avery was suspended 6 games by the league and was ultimately waived by the Stars, allowing him to return to the Rangers to play parts of 4 more seasons. Since his retirement, Avery has gotten into acting with small roles in the Christopher Nolan films Tenet and Oppenheimer. And a final note, at the time of the sloppy seconds controversy, Jarrett Stoll was dating Rachel Hunter, another ex-girlfriend of Avery's. You may remember Rachel Hunter for playing the titular role in the music video for the song Stacy's Mom by Fountains of Wayne.
Yeah, there's no excuse for this one.
There is
fucked
none.
Up.
Yeah.
This is an apology from us to you. I have no excuse. It is inexcusable on a level that is truly embarrassing to have forgotten Sean Avery. I don't have any recourse here. Eric and I fucked up. It is our mistake. you have to forgive us or don't.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily deserve it.
Within 24 hours of recording that podcast, I had actually 3 names that I thought we had overlooked. Avery is the most obvious of them. The other 2, I think, are Panarin and Shesterkin, who are both like the kind of play dumb ways that they would deal with the media is pretty funny. And I think they are pretty entertaining personalities in that sense, in that kind of very dry Russian way. But you're right. Forgetting Sean Avery is unforgivable. You should not forgive us for forgetting Sean Avery in that context. And Charlie has rightly taken us to task for it.
I will give one just commentary in our defense here, which is Eric and I have a pretty wild travel schedule, specifically like over the next few weeks. We were recording extremely late on Tuesday, and we were both going to DC, or you were already in DC.
I was already in DC, yeah.
Like, look, there's no excuse. I'm making an excuse right now, but there's no excuse. You are absolutely right to be disappointed in us.
You're offering an explanation. There's a difference between explanations and excuses, but you're offering an explanation.
But we were extraordinarily tired. So that is what I will say. That's it. I have nothing else to say on this front. That was an embarrassment. We should be embarrassed. We are embarrassed. There's absolutely no reason to have missed Sean Avery.
Episode 86, due mostly to a lack of options. This was the Wojtek Wolski episode. Joe said that he vaguely recalled a Wolski last-second goal against the Phoenix Coyotes, and Eric said that it was actually scored by Ryan Callahan. The game that they couldn't quite remember was played on December 17, 2011 in Glendale, Arizona. The Rangers won on a Brad Richards goal with 0.1 seconds left. Ryan Callahan got the secondary assist. Wolski did not even dress for that game and would play only 3 more games for the Rangers before being traded to the Florida Panthers for a 3rd-round draft pick in 2013, Pavel LaPlante, and Mike Vernace.
But see, this is where Charlie's a bitch, okay? Especially for somebody who has wronged me numerous times. Eric and I also looked into this, you piece of shit. And it would have been nice for you to have done a little bit of research to realize that while he did not score the goal in that game and did not play in that game, he did actually score a last-second game winner, but it was for Phoenix or Arizona, I guess, right? In that instance,
maybe Phoenix, I imagine back then, yeah.
So,
but also, like,
yeah, I'm still wrong. I'm still wrong, but you could have added that maybe that's what I was thinking. Like, it's not like it was this random thing where I was completely wrong.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's not for the Rangers at all puts even more distance in the wrongness there.
Yeah, but it's the player and one of the 2 teams I thought was involved.
Okay, but like,
I got 2 of the 3.
Throw out any 3 dozen NHL player names, and how many of them do you think have scored a goal in the waning seconds of a game like that?
Yeah, this was just he's such a unique name, and he was really just a part of the Rangers for such a little time. I don't even know why that game is in my memory banks if it wasn't even against
That's
the Rangers.
The part that I don't get.
I have no clue where that came from, but you know what? It was in there, and I'm just going to defend myself a little bit here that there was at least somewhat of a path there. You know, for a guy who twice has burned me publicly, giving me false information, you would think he would do what he can to try to make things right. And to this day, he continues to disappoint me.
Playoff heaters. Notable playoff heaters were discussed,
we'll be talking about this too,
Ruslan Fedotenko's 2004 postseason, during which he scored 12 goals and added 2 assists, including the only 2 goals for Tampa in their 2-1 win in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Brian Bickle getting a huge contract following a great playoff run was also discussed. In 2013, he had 17 points in 23 games, including the game-tying goal in Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. That summer, he signed a 4-year, $4 million AAV contract, which is the same percentage of the cap as somebody signing a $6.45 billion AAV contract this summer. As a reminder to any NHL general managers who may be reading this, Vincent Trocheck is signed for 3 more years at a paltry $5.65 million per year. Alex Tuck pronunciation. Joe keeps pronouncing Alex Tuck's last name like touch. His name is pronounced Tuck, like the business school. The better team getting swept. After very much being swept in the 2023 Eastern Conference Final by the Florida Panthers, Carolina Hurricanes coach Rod Brind'Amour said, quote, "That's the unfortunate part of this, is that we're going to look back and everyone's going to say you got swept, and that's not what happened." There is one case in hockey history that I, Charlie in this case, am willing to point to as the better team getting swept. In the first round in 2003, the Detroit Red Wings faced the 7th-seeded Mighty Ducks of Anaheim and outshot the Ducks 64-44, 36-23, 37-26, and 34-27 in those 4 games. The Ducks won all 4 games by 1 goal, including 2 in overtime, to eliminate the heavily favored Red Wings on the back of outstanding goaltending by Jean-Sébastien Giguère, who would go on to be only the 2nd player to win the Conn Smythe Trophy, despite losing in the Stanley Cup Final, the other being Ron Hextall in 1987. Since then, one more player, Connor McDavid in 2024, has won the Conn Smythe Trophy in a losing effort. But Giguère became the only player so far to win the Conn Smythe in a losing effort and later go on to win the Stanley Cup, which was in 2007 with his Ducks, then no longer mighty, when they beat the Ottawa Senators in 5 games. Potential trade with the Blues. The idea of trading the number 5 pick to the Blues for the number 11 and 15 picks was brought up during the question and answer portion of the show. In the episode 69 Nice Ombudsman report, I linked to a paper by Michael Shuckers, which assigns a value to each pick in the NHL draft based on the historical performance from each draft slot. The number 5 pick has a value of 741 points. The number 11 pick has a value of 535 points, and the number 15 pick has a value of 433. That indicates that the Rangers should at least consider making that trade. In order to dig deeper into the potential value of such a trade this year, I'm going to leverage hockeystats.com draft projection model. So the 5 player has a 92% chance of being an NHL regular, 49% chance of being a star. Number 11, 69% chance of being an NHL regular and a 12% chance of being a star. And the number 15 player has a 62% chance of being a regular and a 7% chance of being a star. That means if the Rangers take the 11th and 15th best players, they have a 1% chance of having 2 stars, 17% chance of having 1, 82% chance of having 0 star players, 43% chance of having 2 NHL regulars, 45% chance of having 1 NHL regular, and a 12% chance of having 0 NHL regulars. Scott Arniel hot seat. When ranking coaches who are going to be on the hot seat next season, both Joe and Eric had Scott Arniel at or near the top of this list. Joe then looked back to 2025 and mentioned that Arniel should be on the hot seat already for how the Jets lost in the playoffs 2 years ago to the St. Louis Blues in the Game 7 from the Gods.
Well, they won that game.
Yes, it was actually the Jets who came back from 2 goals down in the final 2 minutes against the Blues in Game 7, including a Cole Perfetti game-tying goal with 1.6 seconds left. The Blues would go on to lose to a very good Dallas Stars team in 6 games in the second round. Frankly, I'm very disappointed in Eric for not catching and correcting this error in real time, given his disdain for the Blues and the entire St. Louis region. Do better, Eric. And that concludes the Ombudsman report.
See, Charlie, that's what I need out of you. If you're going to come at me, come at Eric too. Make it real. That's what I need.
I like that the shot at me there is primarily about how I didn't correct your wrongness. So it's like even when you win, you're losing.
Yeah, I just want you in the foxhole with me, baby. That's it. That's all I want. That's all I'm asking for. So I want to make one comment to the argument that Charlie made for the draft picks, the trades. We're going to have a conversation about the draft again because it's an insatiable appetite that all of you have for the draft, and we're just going to do what we can to fill that and get the clicks and the listens that we can. We may do 5,000 mock drafts this year. I got news for you. You people are eating that shit up, and good. I could be talked into that St. Louis Blues trade, but it has to be at the table after the first 4 picks are made. If Malhotra McKenna and Stenberg are off the board, and you don't want to, you'd actually rather get the quality, or excuse me, the quantity over quality, and you decide you'd rather have what is it, the 11 and the 15?
11 and 15.
I could see that. Still not necessarily sure I would do it, but you're not doing it now. And I guess we may as well talk about this now because we're in the topic of conversation. Part of the benefits of being a premium member of Blueshirt Banter gets you access to stories behind the paywall, one of which is the Joe's reaction of the week. My reaction of the week that you will be able to read tomorrow, if you're listening to this the day that it was dropped on Thursday, is going to be a top 5 mock draft based on some recent information that has come out that we are just overreacting to. And I make it very clear in the lead up of the story that we are overreacting to this information. But San Jose is taking Carson Karls out to dinner. And there is a belief among prospect people and NHL insiders, if you will, that there is a growing belief that he is the top defenseman in this class. So I started doing a little bit of research into if San Jose doesn't trade the pick, and there is a smokescreen out there right now that San Jose is not willing to trade down below 4, which means they will not trade with the New York Rangers. If I'm San Jose and Chris Drury has called me for the second overall pick, I am signaling publicly that I am not going below 4 because that would require Chris Drury to do things that he might not want to do to trade that pick. But if San Jose keeps that pick, it is expected that they are still going to draft a defenseman and they're just going to get their pick of the litter. And the question that I asked was, if they take Karls and Reed, who's widely expected, leading up to this, one of the best defensemen in the class, maybe the best defenseman in the class, is on the board, would Chicago pass on a defenseman for a forward? There's been a lot of discussion that Chicago wants a forward to partner with Connor Bedard. But the thing about that is they have a shitload of forwards in their farm system, and their number 2 prospect, according to Scott Wheeler in his rankings, is coming to the NHL from the KHL, or the MHL, I believe he's playing in their AHL affiliate, esque, next year. Of their top 10 prospects, 2 are defensemen. Neither of them are in the tier 1. One is in the tier 2, one is in the tier 4, I believe. So is it that crazy that Chicago and San Jose take defensemen at this juncture in the draft? The other thing I looked up, and I'm going to look this up right now, even though it's going to probably get me in trouble. Chicago has one player that leads their defenseman in scoring. And that player, or last year, I should say, is Louis Crevier. Do you know who this is? Louis Crevier? Is that it?
Is it? I
don't know,
will confess
whatever.
to have not followed the Blackhawks particularly
25
closely.
points in 78 games, Eric. That is their top scoring defenseman. Bedard is first with 75 points. Bertuzzi is second with 58. Then it drops down to 41, 36, 35, 33, 30, 29, and then the defenseman at 25.
Yeah, with another defenseman admittedly right behind him.
And then another
Artem
one right behind him, 25, 24, and 21.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're Chicago and your farm system is rife with forwards, you have a young forward joining this year from your prospect pool, and you have an opportunity to take a potential number 1 offensive defenseman. Now, granted, let me also add, some of this is complete copium from me, because this would be the ideal situation for the New York Rangers.
Because the end of this is Ivar Stenberg falling to the Rangers at 5.
Or Caleb Malhotra, but I do believe that Manny Malhotra becoming the coach of the Vancouver Canucks all but locks up Caleb Malhotra being drafted by Vancouver.
So I want to come back to that one, but let's stick with the draft analysis part of this in terms of what you think or what you're projecting San Jose and Chicago may or may not do. I have a question for you first. Do you think that it is true that when it comes to this draft, if we're doing the Scott Wheeler tiers, right? In tier 1, there are 2 players, and those players are Gavin McKenna and Ivar Stenberg. Do you agree with that?
Do I agree with that personally?
Yes.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Do you think that the predominant approach for teams that are drafting that high are going to be to draft for positional need? When you have, see, it would be different to me. I guess I would think about it differently if it were McKenna at 1, right? Like there's a clear cut runaway, only one guy in the top tier. And then you get into tier 2 and you've got Stenberg, Malhotra, you have Carls, you have Reed, you have Albert Smiths, even Tynan Lawrence, probably on the lower end of that, where it's clearly a conversation. I'm just really uncertain of 2 teams deciding to pass on who I think probably the majority of hockey analysts out there think is one of 2 guys in that first tier for second tier guys because of a positional need, when they could very well just draft Stenberg and then turn around and, if you're San Jose, trade William Eklund. Trade, I know you love Colin Graff probably more than I think he deserves to be loved, but Colin Graff. If you're Chicago, trade one of those forwards that is in your farm system to try to recoup the defensive assets that you think you need. I just wonder if you're overthinking this scenario when that seems to be a much more likely thing. If I'm San Jose, if I'm Chicago in those positions, I'm taking the clearly better player and I'm offloading a less talented or a less premier forward prospect in order to get the defensive help that I'm looking for.
Would like to make a comment, and then I have 2 questions for you. The comment is, in my article, when I'm selecting Chase Reed for Chicago, I put in it, if I were Chicago and the draft fell this way,
You wouldn't
I
do it?
would not pass on Stenberg to take Reed. So that's the first thing. If it were me, I would not do that.
If you're
Here's my
San
question.
Jose, would you pass on Stenberg to take Carls?
I would
Reed?
probably still not, but I would understand San Jose doing it more than Chicago. Here's my question for you, though. If I forced you to make a bet, is San Jose taking Stenberg or defenseman at 2? If I forced you to bet.
Ooh, I honestly think it's close.
Here's my second question for you.
I don't think it's clear either way, so I guess there seems to be a lot of smoke around the defenseman thing. I guess if you're really forcing me to bet, I would bet that things go in the most conventional way possible. And the most conventional way possible would be San Jose taking the number 2 only other top tier prospect in the draft, which is Stenberg. So I'm not saying that with supreme confidence. It's like 55-45, but
sure. Here's my second question.
I'd bet.
And it's the more important question. And then there's a point afterwards. If San Jose takes a defenseman, does not matter who, is Vancouver taking Stenberg or Malhotra?
Okay, can we talk about this a little more before I answer the question?
Here's all I'm going to say. Can we agree that is at least up for debate, right?
Totally.
I have heard from people that, and this is unconfirmed, if the Rangers traded up at 2, they would select Malhotra over Stenberg. I've only heard it from one place, but it's been said. And the reason I'm saying that is, you and I are having this conversation the way you and I think about hockey.
Agreed. Which is why I asked the question the way I did.
There is already comments out there that teams are alarmed that Stenberg is only 5'11", which I find alarming. I don't know how you don't know that. Here's the other thing, and I texted this to you and Chip earlier in the week. I've been doing my research. I am Team Björck. If he is available at 5 and Stenberg, McKenna, and Malhotra are off the board, I am taking him, if it's me. You watched Caulfield, and granted, maybe not the best time right now because he certainly had a rough time in the Eastern Conference Final. But you
all
have
of
seen
Montreal did.
Yeah, all of them did. But you have
also
seen
Logan Stankoven with Carolina.
This is what I'm talking about. Like, you have seen examples of these guys that are smaller succeeding. And his level of production versus his age at the international level against older competition, I'm talking about Björck now, is almost unprecedented. And if I am the Rangers, I am swinging so hard on talent. So I guess the piece of this that I just want to make sure we're all aware of is Eric and I are having a conversation about what we would do. I could see a world. I totally think San Jose is taking a defenseman. And I do think that there is a world they may not have Stenberg that high on their list. When the Rangers drafted Ryan Gropp, who was in the Connor McDavid draft, they drafted him, I think, 60th overall, if I'm not mistaken, in the second round.
Right.
Something like that. Charlie will fucking tell me. The Rangers had him as their 6th ranked forward in the draft.
Agreed, but can I just make the obvious point here?
Sure, that's what you say after you draft a guy and you want to talk him up, whatever.
Well, no, it's not even that. The Rangers drafting and scouting evaluation back then was utter dog shit. So, like, it's not surprising that they're wrong. And also, like, the margin of error that exists when you're talking like late second round draft picks is much larger than I think what we're talking about in the first 5 picks of the draft. So being that wrong about the 6th best forward, one, when your talent evaluation and drafting back then were absolutely terrible, and 2, when you're that far down already in the draft, I think is just a very different scenario than what we're talking about here.
Yeah, the point is just teams rank players differently. I could see teams being scared off by Stenberg's size, even though I would not be. We are literally going to watch teams pass on Björck. Probably the Rangers that need forwards because of this.
I would one other question in your I'm team Viggo Björck here. In your scenario here, is Carl's off the board?
That in my mock draft that I did?
Well, in your I think you would say in your mock draft, like you've constructed this scenario, right? Where Stenberg probably is the player that's falling to 5. And I think you would probably say, even as much as I think you like Viggo Björck, you would say that the Rangers should take Stenberg over Björck in that
Yes, correct.
scenario,
Stenberg,
right? Okay.
Honestly, outside of outside of McKenna, Stenberg is my top pick in the draft.
So if we're giving away the entire column, I guess, if we do this, but like, I guess we're already doing this. So McKenna at 1 to Toronto. Yep. Is it Carl's going at 2?
Carl's at 2.
Okay.
And then can Chicago, if there is a the reason this gets interesting, and I wrote about this, like, again, remember, I am openly saying I am asking these teams to do things I specifically would not do, right? If there was a belief coming into this draft that Carl's and Reed, but really Reed was like the number 1 defenseman, that ground has shifted a little bit for whatever reason. These things happen all the time. 2 months ago, Caleb Malhotra was probably falling to the Rangers at 5. Then he had an incredible playoffs, and that's no longer happening. So if Chicago had Reed ranked that high, or even Carl's ranked that high, like, this is the other point I want to make, and I've made this before, but I would like to make it again. Whether the Rangers get Malhotra, whether the Rangers get Stenberg, whether the Rangers get Carls, or whether the Rangers get Reed, it's a great thing. It is not a bad thing. There are preferences that we have based on the Rangers' needs, that be a forward, right, and not a defenseman, but it's not a bad thing. The Rangers are not in a bad spot if they draft any of those players. But yes, in it is McKenna.
Yeah.
It is Carls, Malhotra, then Reed, then Stenberg.
Yeah, I guess the cold water that and again, I know that we're talking here the distinction between what you, Joe, would do and what you actually think the New York Rangers would do. I guess I just don't see a scenario where one of Stenberg, Malhotra, Carls, Reed is unavailable to the Rangers. And those just seem to be more sure things by the lights of people who do this kind of analysis than Björck. So I think, as I said before, like if the Rangers were to trade up from the later first round pick that they have, throw some assets at a St. Louis or something like that and get that 15th pick, I can see them taking Björck there. I do not see any scenario in which he is the 5th overall pick for the Rangers, other than the one that I get what you're saying is what you would like it to be. I'm
not
reality,
suggesting the
it's not
Rangers are going to
happening.
do this. Yes, we've seen this movie play out way too many times. We know what the Rangers are looking for. The Rangers have historically prioritized all the wrong things at the draft, and this is
But I think we should just emphasize too that, like, I don't think that selecting any of those 4 players that I said, one of whom is going to be available to the Rangers at 5, is prioritizing the wrong thing here.
No, this is not drafting Dylan McIlrath over Vladimir Tarasenko. This is not.
Yes.
This would not be that. Like I said before, there's no bad decision for the Rangers to make here. I am just of the mind that the Rangers are so bad, they should probably focus on. Like, if we live in this world, and it appears the Rangers live in this world where you can only have one guy running the power play, right? Can only be Adam Fox, can't be anybody else for whatever reason. You're drafting an offensive defenseman who I guess will replace Fox at some point, if that's the plan.
Yeah, well, Fox is entering his age 28 year, and we also, as I wrote the Fox report card this week, the biggest question around Adam Fox is nothing to do with his on-ice performance. It has everything to do with, does he buy in to whatever the Rangers' vision is for how they're going to do this retool / rebuild, or were we correct that the milk drinkers versus whiskey drinkers thing and his dissatisfaction about being left off the Team USA roster and then still having to be around a bunch of guys who won, and his coach having coached that team and his general manager having been a part of putting it together, is that going to be enough that Adam Fox at some point in the very near future wants out, in which case you're going to be able to start moving a Carls or a Reed into that kind of a spot much earlier. I want to go back to...
Let me just put a fine point on that. I think it's stupid to only have one offensive defenseman. That's why I think it's stupid that they didn't really give Scott Morrow the opportunity to kind of dance around a little bit. I'm more than happy taking a defenseman.
Yeah.
The Rangers will need one.
We don't need to litigate the Morrow thing too, which is like, if you're even slightly more defensively competent, I probably think he would have gotten more of a chance. But I think they just believe that anytime he's on the ice, they're probably giving up a goal, and that's... NHL coaches don't want that. It sucks. We can get to Keandre Miller, since that's part of the Keandre Miller trade later, because apparently I made some people online very unhappy. But I want to come back to the Malhotras. You said that you think Manny Malhotra being elevated as the new head coach of the Vancouver Canucks locks up Vancouver taking his son at 3. Are you sure about that? Why?
The smoke was there before that happened. Malhotra was already part of the organization, so it wasn't like this was new. And actually, when the smoke was there, Malhotra was the coach of the AHL affiliate, which maybe where Caleb Malhotra would end up at some point. So
sure, but I think that's the difference between if the Rangers were drafting the son of, let's say Chris Knobloch were still the coach of the Hartford team. I'm not even going to say it. I'm not going to fucking say it for you.
No, say it.
If he were
Do it.
if he were still the coach of Hartford,
Hartford what?
and
I don't know
he
what
had
Hartford
a
team you're talking
son,
about.
yeah, the Hartford AHL team, and he had a son who was as highly touted as Caleb Malhotra has been touted, and like again, it wasn't a fait accompli necessarily. We've seen plenty of cases before where the AHL coach of a franchise gets consideration for the NHL job and doesn't get hired for it. I just think it's less of a big deal if we're drafting the son of the AHL head coach because you just care less about that than you do about the NHL squad than it is if you're drafting the son of your newly named NHL head coach. I only bring it up because I can see it from the point of view of Manny Malhotra of not necessarily wanting the first selection, third overall, right after you have been named the coach of this team to be your son. It has the opportunity to get messy and weird and awkward for all kinds of different reasons. Vancouver is a franchise that needs all kinds of different players because they're basically like Baghdad in 2003, bombed out and depleted. So I think, and even into some of the scenarios you're constructing earlier, Ivar Stenberg is available to them at 3. I think it probably is the case that it doesn't change anything, and they probably are going to take Caleb Malhotra. I just think it militates slightly in the other direction rather than towards it's an absolute sure shot thing now that Manny has been named the head coach. I think it actually moves a little bit the opposite way, that I think it's a little less certain now, but probably still going to happen.
May I enter a piece of evidence in my defense?
Of course.
Exhibit A, Your Honor. I read you a tweet from Adam Herman. Quote, the Canucks' idea of an overhaul is to hire the Sedins, who then, 1, find a new general manager internally who happens to be their former teammate. 2, hire a new head coach internally who happens to be their former teammate. 3, plan to draft the new coach's son third overall. Do I have that right? End quote. These guys are not as concerned with the nepotism the way that I think we would be. Like, if you, at your job, let's say you were named, I'm making this up, CEO, right?
Yes.
You would never hire like your best friend, me, to be anything, right? It's just, you don't shit where you eat. It's just not good business practice. I'm not, like, part of that is tongue in cheek with the Adam tweet, but he's not wrong. Like, the two decisions they made, I just don't think meaning Vancouver, gives a fuck at all about that. I don't think they care.
I don't think that conclusion about a case of actual nepotism, right, necessarily follows from what otherwise is very conventional 200 hockey guy kind of shit. Like, teams love hiring former players in these roles, even though I think you and I both think more often than not it's a bad idea and it's stupid. Okay? The reason that I think that it moves slightly in the other direction with Caleb Malhotra has less to do with the Sedins or with, is it Ryan Johnson, right, is the general manager? Then if I'm Manny Malhotra and I have been I've been coaching the AHL team for Vancouver for a number of seasons. I've had a lot of success there. We have seen examples, right, of successful AHL coaches getting their shot and it not necessarily working out all that well. If I'm him, and there's a very plausible argument, it isn't like Vancouver is first overall and Caleb Malhotra is what we all consider Gavin McKenna to be, where you're passing on him for that reason. This is different. We're now talking tier 2 players with the possibility of a tier 1 player in Stenberg being available. I don't know that if I'm Manny Malhotra, want to add that messiness to my first bite at the apple as an NHL head coach. Maybe I'm entirely wrong about this, and you're right, they just don't give a fuck, and they're just going to do whatever they want anyway.
Well, he
And
thinks his son is
Manny's like,
amazing.
whatever. I'm sure he thinks his son's amazing, but like, that's also part of your fucking job as a parent, is in many ways to think your kids are amazing, which is another reason why I wouldn't want to be in that scenario if I were Manny Malhotra. I would want to be as far away from that as I could be.
How cool to coach with your son, though. That'd be pretty cool.
That's a pretty high,
special.
again, yes, this isn't fucking beer league, right? Like this isn't even your son is the standout star in his 14U team and you're the coach of it. This is the National Hockey League. Like the margin for error there is not huge. And we've seen what has happened to Dallas Eakins in the past. We've seen what has happened to Chris Knobloch. I would want as few things to complicate my path as an NHL head coach. And this is just messy and complicating, unless, of course, Caleb Malhotra is an absolute world beater, which he might be, but it wouldn't be the first time that everybody had a consensus that a guy high up in the draft was really fucking great, and he turned out to be less than that. It's a risk. I'm just saying it's a risk.
I don't disagree with you. I think this is the way this is going to play out. It's just what I'm thinking. All right. Should we now shift to Peter Laviolette somehow still being talked about another NHL job?
Yeah, I mean, in conjunction to we shouldn't be shocked that, former players are in there hiring former teammates and all of that, that retread coaches continue to get retread opportunities. It's just it's the way of the hockey world.
I don't understand this. I really don't. I just don't get it. There are so many better coaches out there that you could bring in that don't have the stink of the New York Rangers on them. And look, I am not suggesting that Peter Laviolette was the instigating event or fully at fault for what happened with the New York Rangers 2 years ago. What I am saying is I'll use the analogy I've used time and time again. He didn't start the fire. He had no idea how to put out the fire. And
was the fire always burning since the world's been turning?
We didn't start the fire. And like, yeah, I understand he wanted to put distance between himself and the team, right? Like I get it. Not going into the locker room, like openly admitting, like literally just not being a coach in any way, shape, or form. You don't get a pass on that. You just don't. I'm sorry. That's not how this works. And that is where I just get off the bus. And that is where I just do not understand for the life of me. So, like Toronto, where things routinely get really fucking hard and hot.
Yeah, that was my point.
You're deciding that this guy that quit when things got hard and hot is the answer to your prayers? Am I missing something here?
I don't think it is defensible in the year 2026 to anymore be seriously considering Peter Laviolette as a head coaching option, really, for any team. But take a team like Seattle, slightly under 500 last year. I could see bringing in Laviolette, the experience that he brings, into such a low pressure, low leverage situation like that. But bringing him, and we could talk about the other possible head coach that they were also apparently talking to, which is Patrick Waugh.
Waugh makes more sense to me than Laviolette, to be honest with you.
Yes, Waugh makes more sense to me than Laviolette, but like again, it's just too combustible to me. Like I don't think either of those are. I think they're bad ideas for different reasons. I think Patrick Waugh would wear out his welcome just as fast in Toronto as he did on the island. And I think Laviolette would be a disaster for many of the reasons that you were discussing, having to do with how things ended with the Rangers. I don't know that I have heard a single head coaching candidate connected to the Toronto job that my immediate thought wasn't, that's a fucking terrible idea. And like even Chip, and maybe we could talk a little about this too. John Tortorella, and if Vegas wins the cup, perhaps even if they don't, you're completely confident Tortorella is getting like a 3 or 4 year deal to coach Vegas?
Yeah. Again, think about this from the lens, and this is the point that I was making to you and Chip. Don't stop thinking the way we think about the game. Think about it the way that we know the NHL thinks about it. John Tortorella took Vegas to the Stanley Cup final with 8 games of regular season experience. A team that was so far out of it, not from the playoffs, but from like people's minds, that people are complaining about the playoff structure in the NHL because there's no reason why Vegas should have had the opportunity to sweep Colorado. You're telling me if Vegas doesn't hire Tortorella, he's not the number 1 head coaching candidate on the market right now?
I agree. He's the number 1 head coaching candidate on the market.
Flip it now, knowing the way we know these guys think.
Yeah,
there's no way.
Can we throw the obvious wrinkle? We could throw the obvious wrinkle into that, which is I agree with you with regard to 31 other NHL franchises.
Sure.
The only one that really does wild and crazy shit that you wouldn't expect, that goes against the grain of how all the other teams do it, is Vegas. They are the one who has been willing to trade away everyone they've drafted in the first round. They don't prospect hug at all. They are in on every major player trade at or leading up to the trade deadline every season. They made that deal for Marner. They made that deal for Tomas Hertl a couple years ago. Mark Stone, like the aggressiveness, the not give a fuck that they have to even fire your head coach with 8 games to go that was heading to the playoffs, right? Like it wasn't that they were on the bubble of missing the playoffs, if memory serves me. They were going to be there. I admit that they were flat, but to fire your coach in that situation, I don't think is something that 31 other teams would have done that late in the year.
Yeah, I agree.
So
but winning the Stanley Cup is a hell of a drug, Eric.
Sure it is. Well, it is. And who was the head coach of Vegas the last time they won a Stanley Cup, and how long was he around after that? Like, Vegas is willing to do things differently enough that I think you have to pause at least a little bit in the confidence you seem to be projecting that it's absolutely going to be Tortorella. Again, I think you're probably correct, but Vegas is the one team that I think you have to give at least some decent odds to they just go completely rogue again and we're like, yep, this was great. Congratulations. We're getting someone different.
Yeah, I'm not. I would be very surprised if he was not kept. Shocked, actually.
I would be surprised. I don't think I would
series.
be shocked just because it's Vegas.
And you're not wrong that Vegas is the team that like does things differently and is certainly, an organization that is happy to press when needed, like different buttons. But I just don't see it. And I was saying this to you and Chip, and I know you guys disagree with me. I don't think it's the weirdest idea in the world. Like, Tortorella very clearly has a shelf life. And the argument that you have made, and I agree with you, is that John Tortorella was the perfect solution to this team because it's a veteran team who's probably smelling themselves a little bit. He has stepped in, brought the John Tortorella, no bullshit. Here's my expectations. Fuck you. We're going to do things my way. They've succeeded, right? Like, they're winning. I could totally see this not working out. Like, John Tortorella has a shelf life. This is how it works. It's always worked this way. Vegas is such an old team, and their window's not like, this is not a 5 or 6 year window team. I could see Vegas sitting down and being like, you know what? Let's see if Tortorella can keep this going for a few more years. And if we have to have a conversation 3 years from now that we're firing him, we just did it with fucking Cassidy. And by the way, we're not even letting Cassidy, like, to your point, they want all
not
the
even letting him
fucking
interview.
smoke. Like, they won't even let Cassidy interview, and Bettman has to be like, yeah, by the terms of his contract, this is not illegal. Like, they're permitted to do this. They're well within their rights. So you're right. I just don't see it. Now,
the only line of disagreement.
Later.
The only line of disagreement I've got with you in that argument you just laid out is I don't think Vegas thinks in terms of windows.
No, that's my thought process.
I don't think
for sure.
Right. So, like, if I'm Vegas and I'm not thinking in terms of windows, then I'm not thinking in terms of, like, this is the window of this veteran-heavy team, and John Tortorella is going to continue to return the same kind of results when we know, based on John Tortorella's track record, which I think also speaks to the fact that when they hired him, they didn't give him a contract except for the remainder of this year. Like, they kept their options open by not giving him a 3-year contract, like the remainder of this year plus 2 more or plus 3 more. So I think I agree that the most likely outcome is the one you're laying out. I think that there is a greater possibility that Vegas just goes fucking crazy rogue again, like they want to do, that I think you're giving credit for.
Maybe they do. Should we now move on to what I think is going to be my favorite topic of the day? Then we can get to questions, which is, here we are again, Eric. We had this fucking conversation last week. We talked about it. I tweeted about it. I thought my tweet was funny, which was, okay, great. Montreal lost. Now we can go from the Jeff Gordon love and glazing to the K'Andre Miller / Brett Howden. Look, guys, I got to be fucking honest with you. Okay? Eric and I are smart. We're not geniuses. We have been telling you for fucking a year since the trade happened that K'Andre Miller was going to get the Carolina Hurricanes bump. Any of you who are watching this and are surprised have not been paying attention. And by the way, K'Andre Miller did not have the best game in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. What I'm trying to tell you is, it is easy to continuously think about the insanity of what we're dealing with right now. We are having conversations repeatedly about former executives or players who are doing successful things on much better hockey teams. Is it any fucking wonder Brett Howden, not really a great example, actually, K'Andre Miller is playing better on Montreal or on Carolina? I fucked up everything there. Is it not? Why is that surprising? Carolina is a fundamentally sound hockey team. The New York Rangers were terrible when K'Andre Miller was on the team. It is not surprising to see him succeeding here. He had pretty good metrics when he was with the New York Rangers. For whatever reason, they didn't want to put him with Adam Fox. It is what it is. But if Carolina doesn't win the Stanley Cup, and by the way, it wasn't really until like the playoffs and really the second round that people started glazing Miller like this. He didn't blow anyone away in the regular season. Like I keep saying, it's okay to not have a thought. It's just okay to let it go. Brett Howden is on a tear of tears, a Ruslan Fedotenko-esque tear. I get it. I completely understand. The guy had like, I don't even know how many points. I looked it up because I was curious. Like, was he just having an amazing playoffs or did he have a good regular season? He's just having an amazing playoffs. He is still the same Brett Howden on Vegas that he was when he was on the New York Rangers. Again, it is amazing that he is having this type of season for Vegas. Yes, you wish he was having this type of season for the New York Rangers. That would necessitate the Rangers to be in the fucking playoffs, and they are not. Brett Howden is not out there scoring 40 goals a year for the Vegas Golden Knights. He's not doing it. I'm sorry. It's okay.
Yeah, he's having a Brian Bickle run.
It's okay. It's fucking okay, guys.
If
You can
Vegas turned
stop.
around and gave him like 8% of the salary cap, that would be a stupid move.
Yes.
Because he's having just a crazy playoffs. I've seen again. I made some people very mad today by somebody had pointed out how burned Keandre Miller was on the William Karlsson goal. And look, there's a couple of things here. The first to me is I throw just a lot of it out when we're discussing the Carolina Hurricanes. Because as we noted, right, we expected him to get that bump. We have also seen plenty of examples of defensemen in particular who have been good, even very good, in Carolina's system, who are not as good elsewhere. Brady Shea is probably the perfect example of this. Brady Shea was inconsistent and not great with the Rangers. He was more consistent and better with the Carolina Hurricanes. And then he got traded to Nashville, and he was straight up bad. Carolina's system, to me, it is like NCAA football teams that play a pure triple option offense. The reason that they do that is typically because they don't have the kind of elite talent that a lot of the other teams do. And it's a system that gets the most out of the players that you have. I think Carolina's system is similar in lots of ways. They clearly, I think Nikolai Ehlers is a very good player. They max out, really, I think, at very good players. Is there a true superstar on the Carolina Hurricanes? I really do not think that there is. Even Seth Jarvis is, and I don't think having a particularly great playoff, but one of their better players. But even he is not just like this pure offensive dynamo. Like he is kind of this junkyard dog kind of a player. So I think you have to factor in the Carolina thing. They recognize that they tried trading for Mikko Rantanen, and Mikko Rantanen did not want to be a part of the way Carolina does things. They have a harder time attracting high-end talent, and they have implemented a system that raises their floor, particularly amongst defensemen, that has made Keandre Miller, who I think you and I both thought was a very talented player and who could not quite put it all together with the Rangers. And as I think somebody in your replies pointed out too, in both of our replies, a lot of people predicted this. This is not a surprise to people who have been paying attention. The only thing that I just can't take much more of, because I just don't agree with it, is I think Keandre Miller overall has been good in these playoffs. And I hear what you're saying, that like his coaches and his teammates rave about him. Big fucking shock, of course, that like coaches and teammates are raving about like, their player or one of their teammates. Like, what are you expecting them to be like? Actually, Key's been having some difficulties, right? Like nobody says that, especially not in the playoffs. He's not winning the fucking Conn Smythe trophy. Stop with this. I'm sorry, but the Conn Smythe is not going to a guy tied for 37th in points in the NHL playoffs. And certainly not when you have Taylor Hall, who has been playing very well in these playoffs, a former MVP who is leading them in points, and you have Logan Stankoven, who is I think second in points on the team and has been putting up really big goals for them in terms of them being important and timely. And frankly, if we're being serious, if Carolina is going to win the Stanley Cup, it is going to be because they're going to continue to get, as they got in the first 3 rounds, very good goaltending. Now, that's not what they got in game 1 from Freddie Anderson. That was the Freddie Anderson that we're much more familiar with. But if they are going to win a cup and the Conn Smythe's going to be given to one of their players, I'm expecting Freddie Andersen to absolutely be in that conversation as well. I think he had something like 11.5 goals saved above expected, and the highest goal saved above expected, like I think it was 0.8, like 0.2 of a point away from a goal a game saved above expected. Freddie Andersen's been a huge part of that. Miller is 4th on the list of Carolina Hurricanes who might get the Conn Smythe Trophy at best. He is 4th. Again, I'm not saying that he has been bad. I'm not saying that he has even been as inconsistent as he was with the Rangers. I think he's been pretty good. But for the love of fuck all, can we calm down about Conn Smythe Trophy nonsense? Because it's not happening.
Well, here's my other point. Why do we continue to pretend like Jeff Gordon's Montreal Canadiens were the most Rangers team ever Rangered? They won a game 7 taking 9 shots on goal. Their goaltender, and I think I tweeted this out, was like 13th on the list of goals saved above average. I don't remember what the timeline was.
No, he was like in the regular season or in the
No, I think it was in the
postseason?
playoffs, I think.
In the playoffs, he's first.
Yeah, it was a ranking of like the past some odd years. He was like 13th.
Okay.
Like it was a.
So the point is that like he had I saw what you tweeted. He had
so like,
one of the craziest goaltender playoff runs in years.
We're talking about how amazing Jeff Gordon is in Montreal, and it's the same fucking team he had with the Rangers. K'Andre Miller, when the Rangers were competent, was competent. I still don't know today if I would sign him to the $8 million contract over the course of 7 years.
Again, I think that works for Carolina because of what Carolina is.
Yes.
But like you are comparing, it's not even apples to oranges. It's like apples to kumquats here. Like it is just Carolina is a completely different animal in all of this. And I completely understand people looking at this and going like, other teams are able to take these prospects like K'Andre Miller and produce good, reliable defensemen with them. And don't you wish the Rangers could do that too? Of course I wish the Rangers could do that too. And you know what? There are all kinds of teams out there that look at the New York Rangers and say the New York Rangers take fucking anybody and turn them into like 1986 Conn Smythe Trophy winner Patrick Waugh on a regular basis. They do that with goaltending. They have been doing that with goaltending for 2+ decades now. In the same way that we're looking at those other teams and saying, why can't the Rangers produce reliable defensemen in the same way? Other teams look at the Rangers and go, why can't we produce reliable goaltending in the same way? Some teams are better at things than others. The Rangers should be looking to get better at, of course, improving their forwards, developing their defensemen, developing the prospects, generally speaking. But it's just a reality. There are some things teams are better at than other teams. And I just cannot get past the Carolina part of all of this, which throws a wrinkle into the entire conversation.
Yeah, they're a good team. It's just, again.
But a different kind of team.
Yes, you don't need to. Every time a former Ranger does something amazing, you don't need to just be like, oh my God, the Rangers fucked this up. Like, as an example, if Seattle fans were talking about the talent evaluation around Ty Cartier, right? Because he came to the Rangers suck, but he did a really good job with the Rangers. Yeah, okay, I can understand that line of like, well, what exactly were we thinking that led for the organization to give up on a 24-year-old guy who then goes over to the Rangers who fucking suck? The Rangers are terrible. And immediately becomes like a powerful impact player for them. That is a fair line of questioning. If you don't think that K'Andre Miller is going to play better on a better hockey team, I don't know what to tell you.
If you don't think especially that Carolina.
Yeah, like if you don't think that Brett Howden, granted, this run is insane, and it's on the level of what I was saying when the Rangers were not scoring goals in the beginning of the year. Like, it was so insane that they were shut out as often as they were at Madison Square Garden that it's almost not even worth discussing. Like, it's beyond luck at this point. It's something crazier than that. Like,
yeah, like Black Swan event.
Yeah. He's having an incredible, unreplicable playoffs. Unreplicatable?
Unreplicable. You're right.
Unreplicable playoffs. He will never do this again. He was not gangbusters for Vegas in the regular season. He was the same fourth line guy the Rangers have had. He was just on a better hockey team. And yes, he got red hot. Theoretically, he could have gotten red hot for the Rangers, but the Rangers are not in the playoffs. Like, this is not everything has turned into some type of like, this is why the Rangers suck. Oh my God. Why do the Rangers have such trouble developing and identifying talent? Like, they put Miller on the top line. The Rangers did give K'Andre Miller opportunities. I think if K'Andre Miller was a little bit more realistic about how much money he wanted to get, he would be a New York Ranger. Let's also not forget that K'Andre Miller was one of the guys that quit on the fucking team 2 years ago. That we're talking about Peter Laviolette. Like, stop it. Good for him. I would not be upset if he won the Stanley Cup. Whatever. He just had a child. The picture of him holding his child after they won the Eastern Conference Finals was like one of the coolest things you'll ever see, and why Manny Malhotra is going to draft his son. But that being said,
sure,
it's like you could just let things go. Like, everything does not need to be this, I have the opportunity to fucking dunk on the Rangers.
Yeah, I am happy. I'm happy for Brett Howden. I'm happy for K'Andre Miller. Good for them. I hope they have a fun time in the Stanley Cup final. One of them is going to raise the cup. Good for them. I think we all agree here. The Rangers have significant problems. You and I talk about them once a week and have been doing so for 87 episodes of this program now. So it's not as if this is rose-colored glasses bullshit where we're saying everything is fine. We recognize that the Rangers have problems, but there just are some people out there in Rangers Town who want to be miserable. You want things to be miserable about. That's your right. Or they have an
axe to grind.
Or have an axe to grind. Or maybe a combination of both. But that's your right. You can go ahead and do it. I just don't have the time for it anymore.
Let's get to questions, Eric.
All right. Let's start with L-Man. Early consensus is the Rangers take Carson Karls at 5. If the Rangers trade into, yes, we've discussed a lot of that already. If the Rangers trade into the top 10, e.g. sending Trocheck to Florida, I don't know, that doesn't make sense. All right, well, I will read the question, then we can dissect it. If the Rangers trade into the top 10, e.g. Trocheck to Florida, should they consider drafting a second defenseman? While it is anticipated that will be a run on D after McKenna, Stenberg, and Malhotra go, there's a chance that doesn't materialize. Do you take Verhoff or Spitz in that scenario? This could shore up the blue line for the next decade, and the Rangers can dangle Schneider and Cooley to get top 6 talent. I don't see a trade for the Rangers with Trocheck that gets them another pick in the top 10 this year. So that's the first problem I have with the construction or the premise of the question. Secondly, I think I would not take a second defenseman, especially considering, again, in a scenario where they're taking, let's say, Karls at 5, again, to work with the premise of the question. I'm not taking another defenseman at 9 or 10 or something like that. I'm taking one of the forwards that we thought would be available lower down there, someone like Tynan Lawrence, somebody like Viggo Björck. I'm taking a forward in that situation, preferably a center, because that is another area of need. And I think dividing up those two picks amongst two different areas of need is probably the right approach. And again, I want to reemphasize, even though I appreciate Chris's analysis that with Verhoff, his skating isn't his best attribute, but I think, at least according to Chris, people have been overmaking the point that he's not a good skater. I still am not particularly excited about him as a prospect, but I think the skating is not as bad as I and some others had perhaps perceived it to be. So that's my answer.
Verhoff also, I write about this in the article too. There's the Gavin McKenna treatment. Like, he had 20 goals and 24 assists in the WHL last year as a 17-year-old. Then he came over to the NCAA, and this is the same conversation that people are having about Gavin McKenna, where he scores 129 points in the regular season in juniors, then only scores 51 points in like 39 games or something in the NCAA level. I don't think you guys realize how much better the NCAA has gotten of late and the different quality of play than what you get in juniors. So the argument that was made to me was Verhoff was a 20-goal scorer a year sooner. Like, we're having conversations now about Reed and Carls in the offense that they're putting up. Like, Verhoff was putting up not point per game numbers, but he was also an underage player in the WHL. There's a real reason to be optimistic about his offense. But to answer the question at hand, after the Rangers pick at 5, Calgary picks at 6, they're not trading for Trocheck. Seattle picks at 7, they're not trading for Trocheck. Winnipeg picks at 8, I could see them trying to, but he doesn't want to go to Canada, I would assume.
Yeah, there's no
Coast,
way.
So
there's no way that Winnipeg is not on his no-trade list.
Florida's 9. So I think that's where the question came from. Like, if you trade him to Florida and you get their first-round pick, would you do that? I don't think he would be opposed to going to Florida. I'm not sure Florida has any interest in trading for him, though. I think Florida thinks if they get healthy, they're good to go.
Yeah, nor do I think that Florida has what I would want in return for Trocheck, given the temperature that I think we've seen of the Trocheck trade market.
Sure. And then Nashville's at 10. If I could, to answer the question, though, let's assume the Rangers just Winnipeg trades for him and they're not on the no trade list and he's at 8. The Rangers aren't good enough to pass. Like, they cannot be like, oh, we got to go defense. If Björck is on the table, you're taking Björck, right? You're taking whoever your best player is available there. It may be a defenseman. I don't know how the Rangers rank their board, but I would not go in, and the Rangers should not go in thinking, oh, I got to take 2 forwards. Oh, I got to take 2 defensemen. Now, if they have a bunch of guys ranked in like the same realm, like in the same tier, and they say, okay, we took a defenseman at 5 or we took a forward at 5, so now we're going to take a defenseman at 9 or 8, whatever it is. Sure, whatever. As long as it's a tiebreaker. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's the answer to that question.
I think the important point here with regard to the Trocheck trade aspect of this is
got to get more
teams. Well, not only do you have to get more, but like, who is going to be in on Vincent Trocheck? It is not going to be a team like the only one. I will give you L-Man credit for pointing out that like Florida is the only kind of anomaly in the top 10 there, in that this was a team the last 3 years was deep into the playoffs and won the last 2 Stanley Cups. So I recognize the difference with that one. But the majority of teams that are going to be entertaining a trade for Vincent Trocheck are teams that are looking like are contenders already and think that that is the piece that is going to put them over the top.
Correct.
So,
or Toronto.
Toronto, because they're just going to be crazy, which is all the more reason to explore a trade with Toronto. But in those scenarios where real quick, in those scenarios where you're trading with those contender types, if you're getting a first-round pick in return, you want it to be a first-round pick a year or 2 down the road when there's a much better chance that they're going to be a worse team, and that's going to be a higher first-round pick.
Does Toronto laugh you off the phone if you offer Trocheck and 5 for 1?
John Chayka is the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, so I don't know that you could say he'd laugh anybody off the phone. Like, I am all here for shit getting really weird with Toronto.
So I wouldn't do it if I was Toronto.
Free agency.
But I don't know if I would at least talk about it.
I'd make the call.
I would do it if I was the Rangers, to be clear.
Totally.
Which
no, I think until you get a baseline,
of me doing it probably means Toronto wouldn't. But if they've talked themselves into the fact that they had a shitty coach and a shitty general manager, and Trocheck is a fucking winner who played on Team USA with Austin Matthews, and maybe this is a way to keep him around. Like, I don't know. I don't think I wouldn't do it, and I don't think Toronto would do it. But I don't think Toronto would be like, you're out of your fucking mind. I think they'd just be like, no.
I think until John Chayka makes a couple of trades and we get a baseline on Toronto Maple Leafs 2026 era John Chayka, I think you treat him like the way that we talked about it was never Rutherford with Vancouver. I can never remember who was the actual general manager there, but it's like, or Stan Bowman or any of these like just
Barry Trotz.
dopey general manager, Barry Trotz, guys that was just like, you're not doing your job
Shirelli?
if you're not on the phone with them regularly, because the odds that they will do something insanely stupid is so high. So I think you treat him like that until you get from a trade or two a baseline of like what new John Chayka is like. And if it's like old John Chayka, then you call him every day. And if it's better than old John Chayka, you probably keep calling him and seeing what you can do.
Yeah, I agree.
Another question here from L-Man. Given the Rangers' need for top six talent, would the Rangers be better off focusing on quality versus quantity? For example, Trocheck to Florida for a package centered around the 9th overall pick, and then you get Björck, Lawrence, or Belshitz. I have not figured out how to pronounce this
Belshitz
guy's
is
name.
great, though. I hope it is Belshitz.
Belchetz. I actually am not certain. Somebody please tell me how to say this. Who may all have higher upside than any player, prospect, or pick in the trade scenarios being proposed, like to Trocheck to Minnesota. Could Schneider plus Edstrom be traded for a top 20 pick and a top 6 forward, looking at San Jose, who have the 20th pick plus Eklund, Chernysov, or Musty? I mean, the Rangers need a lot.
Yeah,
right?
This goes back to what I was saying
answer
before, like, not to cut you off, there is an argument to be made that it makes more sense to do that trade with St. Louis. That if all the forwards are off the board and you're not necessarily, let's say the Rangers are enamored with one of those three defensemen, right? Karls, Reed, and Bearhoff. Let's say it's Karls, right? And he's off the board. Yeah, I could see a world where trading 5 for 11 and 15, hopefully you get Björck, but maybe you take a couple of these guys. The problem you run into in this instance with the way this draft is shaping out, assuming Stenberg goes second overall, picks 1 and 2 are done, right? Those are the top tier players. Picks 3 to like 9 are really where you get into like, this guy might be one of the best players in the draft, but like there's a lot more risk here. You know what I mean? Like there is a lot more risk. And the quantity over quality for an organization that is really no prospect pool, that argument makes sense. The question is it worth passing on a potential top pair defenseman to roll 2 less likely lottery picks? If I could guarantee, like if I had a deal with the Blues and they would never do this, where it's like, who do you guys want at 5? Oh, you want Reed or Karls? Whatever. We'll draft him. And then if the draft board plays out the way we want it to, we'll trade him to you for 11 and 15, right? Which, honestly, isn't the stupidest idea in the world. The Rangers are getting a guy they would have taken anyway, more than likely. Right? The Rangers would have had to want the guy. If they're like, oh, we want to take, X, and the Rangers have no interest in him, obviously that doesn't work. And then I see that, oh, Björck is available at 11? Sure, maybe I do it. And then, oh, Lawrence might be available at 50. You know what I mean? Then it's a little bit different, but that is such a, to your point, atypical 200 hockey men have never even thought of this idea before. It would never happen. But that is the only way that I would entertain
It's a little bank shoddy, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like if I could guarantee, like if I draft Reed or Karls, and then I say to St. Louis, like, I'll call you back in 15 minutes. Let's see how the draft board shakes out. What do you have to lose if you're the Rangers? It would be hysterical too to do it NBA style.
It'd be wild.
Like he has the Rangers jersey on, and it's like, yeah, why don't you take? It's like the scene in South Park. Maybe my favorite, funniest scene of all time, where is it like the Chinese dancing girls are with them and their grandmother dies, and Randy has to break the news to them. Are you a South Park guy?
I know older South Park. I don't know.
So the 3 girls are standing with the boys, and Randy says to Sharon, like, all right, we have to do this gently. And then he's like, all right, everybody who has a grandmother, step forward. And the girls step forward. He's like, not so fast, girls. Like, that's what it would be like with Karls, where it's like, yeah, put your Rangers jersey on, but don't maybe don't put the hat on.
Too tightly.
Yeah, don't put the hat on. Also, don't be surprised that it has question marks on the back and not your name. We'll get to that in a minute.
All right. State of hockey. More of a comment than a question, but I'd like to acknowledge Mika. I hear a lot of people say he sucks because he only gets you around 80 points and a 1C needs to do more than that, but consider these stats. Career, point per game. Jonathan Toews, 0.79. Patrice Bergeron, 0.80. Mika, 0.81. I'm not saying Zibanejad is better than those guys. Those guys are leaders, Selke Award winners, multiple cups, you name it. But the idea that you need a 1C to get you 100 points is bull. And really, if it weren't for Bergeron and Barkov, Mika may have gotten a Selke. I get last year was bad, and but the guy has been maybe the best
2 years ago?
non-goalie ranger. I think he means 2 years ago.
Yeah, last year was not bad.
Yeah, 2 years ago was bad, but the guy has been maybe the best non-goalie ranger in 20 years. I think, look, we have both talked about this pretty extensively and have come around considerably on Mika Zibanejad after last season. And, yes, the only thing I think I would dissent from there is slightly is like Mika Zibanejad, I think I would much prefer him as a 2C and have that much clearer, more dominant kind of. And I think Mika's a fine defensive player, but I think both Toews and Bergeron are much better defensive players than Mika is. I still think the Rangers need much more of a premier 1C than what Mika Zibanejad is at this point in his career, which isn't even that much of a knock on Mika. It's just more of he's getting up there in age, and I appreciate the bounce back year, but it's time to start thinking forward. But we should
we should give Mika his
flowers.
Post, wasn't it?
Is.
Like this wasn't like a current thing. It's like, listen, Eric and I said this 2 years ago when things were really bad with Mika Zibanejad. He should be remembered as a unbelievably great New York Ranger.
One of the best trades ever made.
One of the greatest trades ever made. Like he is it's actually really nice in a way that Zibanejad redeemed himself this year because it doesn't so much sour what will ultimately be a somewhat complicated relationship when he does inevitably leave. And look, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. So, like, he's here for the long haul. It just is what it is. And I just think it's worth noting.
Fine.
Yes, it's totally. Right now, it's totally fine. As long as he plays like he did last year, it's totally fine.
It's fine.
I think it's worth noting that Zibanejad dropped off from the peak of his powers pretty quickly and did not handle things well 2 years ago. And there are expectations when you are a leader, and there are responsibilities that he very simply did not do. He rectified many of those things this year. This year was not all that much easier of a year. It helps. So, yes, give him his flowers. He deserves it. He was a very good New York Ranger, an excellent New York Ranger. I don't think he's like his name is retired in the rafters New York Ranger, but he's up there. He should be up there. You should remember him fondly. And yes, agreed. Let's hope he can keep it up as long as he possibly can because Father Time always wins, Eric Cohn.
Yes. State of hockey again. If you could subtract 2 NHL markets and add 2, what would they be? We've done something similar to this before. I think we did it last summer. But the subtract 2, I think, is a new wrinkle. Who would you subtract? Because I think what we settled on the add 2, this is, again, I think a combination of like what we would like to see and what we think is likely going to happen, is Atlanta is getting another team.
They would be one of the 2 teams that I would absolutely give a team to.
I think Houston or San Antonio.
Yep, would be up there for sure.
So in this case, we're not adding expansion franchises. We are relocating 2 franchises to those cities. Who are you relocating? I like that smile already.
Unironically, okay, not saying this is a bit or a joke, the Devils. or the
agreed.
Islanders, but probably the Devils. Maybe the Islanders. There's no need to have 3. There's just not. It's not required. The Devils really, like, I'm not even saying this to troll them. I know there are Devils fans out there who are super into the Devils. 99% of them watch the Rangers more than the Devils anyway, so it doesn't matter. You're not actually losing your team. Your team will still be there. It's just not, it's too saturated. There should not be 3 of them in that area. It just does not make sense. So you can pick whichever one of the 2 between the Islanders and the Devils you want. I'd probably pick Jersey, to be completely honest with you, but
I think
that's
he has less of a fan base.
Yes, less of a fan base. The Rangers, like, Islanders rivalry and, close proximity to each other, whatever. That would be my number 1. The number 2 becomes harder because the NHL already kind of got rid of the easy ones. And to be fair to the NHL and to give Gary Bettman credit, they were unbelievably intelligent to get to Seattle before the NBA did and to get to Vegas before the NBA or the NFL did. And you are seeing them reap the rewards where there are conversations, serious conversations happening right now about the New York Rangers, Jesus Christ, about how, like, Vegas may be a choking point for a potential NBA team because of how much of a foothold the Golden Knights have there.
Yeah, especially if they keep winning.
Good for them.
So your second team that you're relocating. Because we're in agreement on number 1. We're both moving the Devils.
Get the Devils out of there. They don't need to be there. Who would be number 2? Who would your number 2 be?
I think my number 2 would be Columbus.
I don't know if I agree with that, but give me your reasoning.
It is one of the least successful franchises out there. Like,
you're
again,
thinking
their
about
teams
this a completely different way.
Are
You're being punitive. You are punishing.
Well, it
like the Ottawa Senators draft selection punished.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I'm also in part being realistic because my other answer would probably be the Ottawa Senators, but, like, they're just not gonna. I don't think they're gonna move another team out of Canada, so I don't think that it's worth entertaining that. There's not an obvious answer here. I mean, I wonder if you need 2 hockey teams in the Los Angeles area, but I also just don't see them moving the Ducks. So I guess it's Columbus, just because to me it's just kind of a moribund franchise. I don't, there's fans in Columbus. I'm not saying there aren't fans in Columbus. There are fans in all of these places. I just don't know that it's enough that it compels me to want to keep them in Columbus. So I'm going with Columbus.
I don't know if I have a good answer to this question because
the first one's easy. The second one is much harder, admittedly.
It becomes a game of you're forcing me to do this, and then I am going to do it punitively. So if I'm going to do it punitively, it's Ottawa or Vancouver, quite frankly.
Ooh.
And I honestly don't necessarily need Vancouver as much because I have Seattle right there.
Vancouver as a city would cease to exist if you moved the Vancouver Canucks out of there, because they are the only place that has lost a Game 7 of a Stanley Cup final twice and rioted after. So I don't think that the city would survive them being moved out of town. They would not deal with it as well as Seattle dealt with the Sonics being moved out of Seattle. So I just don't think, again, this is all not happening anyway, so I guess we can go with whatever rules we want for all of this. But I'm not pulling teams out of Canada. I think Canada is still fairly important for the sport. So,
sure.
Although I could lean towards Ottawa there, much closer than I could lean towards Vancouver. But I just, maybe it's just because I don't really care that much for the state of Ohio, and I want to punish them.
There's another answer here, and this is not punitive. San Jose? Do you need San Jose, LA?
I mean, at least San Jose is some distance away from LA,
Yeah,
so I think
and
the argument floats a little more for, do you need 2 teams in Los
Anaheim,
Angeles?
and yeah, I could, if we're being fair and we're making the argument for the Devils, you kind of have to make the argument for Anaheim then in that instance and go with them. I will say though, it's not a great answer. Like I'm being forced to give an answer. So yeah, if I had my
I agreed.
druthers, it's the Devils move to Atlanta. I
Atlanta.
think Atlanta is begging for a hockey market. I think Atlanta, one of the teams, believe it or not, that I believe truly built up the right way was Nashville. Nashville went grassroots, got kids involved in hockey and in the Predators, and it turned into an unbelievably supportive fan base
They,
that is
they got kids involved with the Predators.
they got they got they got kids involved with the Nashville
They got Predators in the community. Yeah.
Predators in the
Good work.
community, Predators visiting schools.
Yeah.
Elementary schools even.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would move the Devils to Atlanta, and then if you forced me to,
Yeah.
I guess using that logic, I am moving Anaheim. And who am I moving it to? I think Houston would probably be my number one selection.
If we're just being absurdly punitive in this sense, then I am moving the Nashville Predators because that is the worst home arena group of hockey fans I have ever experienced a game with.
I've never seen a professional hockey game outside of Madison Square Garden.
Really?
In my life. And I have gone to, rough math, I have gone to like 600 Ranger games in my life.
And never one outside of Madison Square Garden.
Never one outside of Madison Square Garden. I've never been to the
So
Coliseum. I've never been to the only other team.
Interesting.
The only other hockey games I've ever watched in person was at the Bank at Quinnipiac or at Ingles and Yale. That's it. Those are the two.
I have seen a number of Blackhawks games. So I've been to the United Center a number of times. I've seen a lot of St. Louis Blues games, both at the old arena and then what was Kiel Center and Scottrade Center, Enterprise Center. So I've seen a number of games there. I did see, I think we've talked about this before, I saw Game 2 of the 2007 Rangers Atlanta Thrashers series in Atlanta. So I was one of the few people who saw a playoff game in Atlanta. I think. Oh, and I've seen the Rangers and the Red Wings at Little Caesars in Detroit. But this is, again, I understand that from where you're coming from because again, you live there, and I have never lived in New York, so I have always had to go to other arenas to see my hockey team.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's move through these remaining questions.
We've given the people almost an hour and 40 minutes already. This is truly like yeoman's work on our behalf.
From Chip, does the success of Vegas over the last 5 years have you rethinking the notion that the Rangers have to rebuild through the draft?
No. I know why he's asking this question, too.
I know he's asking this question, too. While I don't think it would be a bad idea for the Rangers to adopt some of the different strategies that Vegas has employed, I do think you have to at some point go back to the way that Vegas was created as an expansion team.
Correct.
And the way that they were able to bring in above average players through the expansion draft that got them to the Stanley Cup final their first season of existence. So
with Gerard Gallant.
With Gerard Gallant as the head coach, right? So like this is the black swan of black swan events. So I don't know how much other than I like the strategy that Vegas employed once they were able to do so, which was we're going to be in on every major trade. We're not going to be afraid to deal draft picks. We're not going to be afraid to deal prospects. We're not going to prospect hug. I think some of that aggressiveness would be good, but I don't know how translatable the Vegas experience is to any other franchise, really.
Yeah. Remember, too, Vegas broke the draft lottery. Like, not the draft lottery, the expansion draft. They literally got teams to pay them assets to take their best players. They nailed the expansion draft. Could not have done a better job with the expansion draft. To the point where when Seattle tried to mimic this, it was already ruined at that point because the method had already been exposed and nobody was willing to deal with them for fear of what happened from Vegas. So, yeah, it's just different. That's all. It's not replicable in this instance. The Adjustment Bureau. That is my answer.
You can hit from Chip. You can hit undo on one transaction from each GM over the last 30 years. So one from Smith, one from Sather, one from Gorton, and one from Drury. Which 4 trades or signings would you undo?
4 signings.
Yeah.
Drury's easy. It's Buchnevich. I don't even think it's close.
Gorton, it's the McDonough.
Yeah,
trade.
do I get both McDonough and Miller, right? Because it's
you're
one
doing
transaction,
it, right? So it's
then,
you get both.
Yes.
You keep McDonough and you keep Miller.
Yes, then that's that. Sather is harder because there's a lot of shit that happened there.
Well, if I can undo signings as well as I have an answer to this that I think is going to make a lot of you out there happy. Chris Drury.
I'll go
don't
one
sign
further.
Chris Drury.
I don't sign Tanner Glass.
I get what you're saying there.
And the purpose of that, by the way, is not to actually. Can I force a signing that didn't happen? Can I undo?
No, it's only undo.
So I can't undo them not signing Strawman?
Yeah, I think you have to undo something that happened, not something that didn't happen.
So then the Dan Girardi contract, can I undo that if I'm Glenn Sather?
Well, I mean, I think you could say there was also Wade Redden, right? Undo the Wade Redden contract.
I'm specifically looking at 2014 and that disastrous summer where the Rangers blew up the core of what made them a Stanley Cup contending team.
I think then, yes, you're saying not re-signing Dan Girardi or not re-signing Mark
not
Stahl
re-signing Dan Girardi,
reasonable.
which theoretically forces them to keep Anton Strawman, which was a huge mistake to let him go. And, because I can only pick one. I could also be, oh shit, it fucking just left my brain. That was stupid.
Well, I was going to give I was going to say the Neil Smith part of this is also just very difficult because I think there's an obvious answer, but I don't know what its implications are for the 1994 Stanley Cup championship, which is you keep Tony Amonte. Do the Rangers still win a cup?
That's my question for you.
Really,
if you had the ability to do that
kind of stuff,
I'm not touching anything from that 94 team because I don't know how it's going to play out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very much like going back in time and stamping on a bug and
the
returning to the future. Yeah. So I think those are my answers. But I'm with you on the I'm not. I actually no. I have the answer for Neil Smith, and it's actually I take it back. It's even more obvious. I don't fucking trade Sergei Zubov.
What about Matt Zuccarello? I know that's returning back to Sather, but
yeah, Cronus put Zuccarello in there for the Gordon one too, that's another one that I wish didn't happen. But the McDonough Miller trade is I think just the obvious answer. That was Gordon. Yeah.
Oh, Gordon made a lot of bad trades, huh? It's interesting.
Yeah,
that's not what I've heard.
Isn't that interesting? It's almost like we shouldn't overrate Jeff Gordon's tenure with the New York Rangers, and it's not that great. It's not smart to do that.
Not what I've heard at all.
Statesboro Blueshirt CT. We answered this one already. Does Malhotra becoming coach make it more or less likely that they draft his son? Please see earlier in the program when we discussed that. T-Type 89. If Mike Sullivan won the Indy 500, would he drink whiskey or milk? That's actually a great question. I would assume it would have to be
whiskey with milk.
Anything, worse sounding than whiskey and milk mixed together. That's a hard pass for me. I think milk's disgusting, but so okay, whatever. 84 Jorts. End of show question. So we've gotten, actually, I missed, there was an opening question too. Do you want to do his opening question really fast and then we'll do his closing question?
Sure.
And that's it. Don't die on us before we're done here. Opening question. Which Rangers from this century would you put as your starting 5 for the Knicks? How would they do against the 2011-12 Charlotte Bobcats, the worst NBA season ever?
We have to go for height here, right?
Yeah.
So like Matt Rempe and Adam Edstrom actually have a good shot here.
Yep.
Who else are some lanky motherfuckers?
I'm so again, I'm bandwagoning the Knicks. I look forward to I don't even know what's going on with that game right now.
I was just looking up the score now.
You do that. What I'm just going to give Statesboro Blueshirt CT's answer
midway through the second.
In the second, okay. I'm going to give Statesboro Blueshirt CT's answer here because I don't know that I can do better than this. Zuccarello at point, Rempe at center, Edstrom forward, Hagelin guard, Messier forward.
See, I don't know the positions.
You're asking the wrong guy when it comes to basketball here. But
I would say
I like it.
Rempe's probably my center. I hear the term "go big" a lot on the Bill Simmons podcast, so I'm assuming you need 2 players to do that. So we'll have Edstrom be the other guy. I like the idea of Zuccarello as the point guard simply because he was such a good passer. Like, he'd have to be a good facilitator. So that actually makes a lot of sense. Would Jaromir Jagr be good at basketball?
Probably.
Just a great athlete, right? Maybe he's my shooting guard.
Yeah. I'm just going to answer the concluding question here, which is how would they do against the 2011-12 Charlotte Bobcats, which were the worst team in NBA history? They would get destroyed by them. Like, this is another version of this was going around a month or two ago, of if you had 100 pitches to hit a home run off of Paul Skeens, like, you can either take it was like $100,000, or you get $100 million if you hit a home run off of Paul Skeens. But if you don't hit the home run, you get nothing. And the answer is you take the $100,000.
Yeah, of course you do.
Because you'd be lucky to get a fucking foul tip off of Paul Skeens.
Yeah,
100 pitches. As good as these guys are as athletes, professional NBA players would destroy them.
It's a shame Pros versus Joes is no longer on the air, because it truly, truly showed just how fucking bad these people are when they think they're better than everybody else. Also, I believe that show. No, what was the show that pit people against animals?
I do not remember this.
In events. And the reason I'm bringing this up is there was an event where I think a guy was racing a giraffe, and they had the keys to the race, and the key to the race for the giraffe was knows that it's in a race, which is one of my favorite lines of all time. I think I've told this story on the podcast before. I will tell it again. And let me just look something up here, actually. Make sure it's who I'm thinking it is. Just hang on, everybody. Don't fucking freak out.
We're going to get to the 2-hour mark if it kills us.
No, we will get there, and it will be fine. Okay, I am correct. My senior year of college, a couple of my roommates and a couple of other guys played beer league hockey. Eric Christensen, who was I
remember this now. Yeah.
Basically like a fringe AHLer, NHL player, whatever, came one day. A guy who was a washout in the NHL. Had a couple of seasons with the Rangers, played hockey games, whatever. He was an NHLer, but not a regular, not a guy who was in the league for a decade consistently. I have never in my life seen a human being do things on the ice with the hockey puck that he did. It was the most mesmerizing shit I have ever seen. On a level that I can't even appropriately articulate to you right now. The puck was literally on a string. He could do no wrong. If I remember correctly, he played the game and only passed. He refused to shoot. But then after the game was over, literally picking his shit. And that guy couldn't cut it in the NHL. And you think, you're going to beat him? No. Sorry. No. That was the moment of like, even in my college stupidity, no. You're just in a different
Yeah.
realm.
Yeah. No, you are not close to a professional athlete. Nobody is, except for professional athletes. All right. End of show question from 84 Jorts. The banter had the 10-game temperature checks throughout the season, but what's the temperature like right now? Did it go up or down since the final games?
Down would be good.
I was about to double check that.
So yeah, right. If the temperature's being raised, it's bad. There's more pressure and whatever.
Yes. So I got to go back to the original 10-game temp check and the explanation. The hotter the team is, the higher the temp. The colder or the worse the team performs, the lower the temp. So just to give us a final rating here, the final 10-game temp check, Chris had it at 94.5
degrees. So that was bad, correct, then?
No, that was like, it was, the current temperature is going to stay about the same, but we'll kick it up slightly since these games have actually been entertaining and even at times fun. Because of that, we finished the year at 94.5.
So up is good?
So it was like, up was good, yes.
Then the temperature's gone up. I think Chris Drury is already reaping the rewards of not trading Vincent Trocheck at the trade deadline. I think the Rangers have options on the table for Braden Schneider. The Rangers are going to make a very good draft selection, knock on wood, regardless of where they're drafting. And it really couldn't get worse. Now, that all can change almost immediately. But
yeah, we're
right
in
now,
that
I'm feeling
in
okay.
between period because a lot of stuff hasn't happened yet. So there's reason to be higher on this, on what is coming. I know there are doomers out there. If you want to be a doomer, that's fine. There are things to get excited about, right? Like there are things to genuinely be intrigued by who the Rangers are going to draft. They've got a number of draft picks to make. They have, some interesting prospects. Liam Greentree. It's going to be interesting to see how some of these prospects do as they come into camp and where they're going to end up. NHL, AHL. There's some stuff to be like, if not excited about, to at least be intrigued by, and to not just enter every day thinking that the world is going to end. That's
Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining. This has been Blueshirt Bandwidth. Please leave us 5 stars, a nice review, comments, do your thing. We appreciate those things. BlueshirtBandwidth.com, $85 a year, get you all your ad-free access to the New York Rangers. Eric, anything to end on? I feel like we've done enough. You guys getting a 2-hour podcast in the middle of the fucking summer, or I guess the start of the summer, good for you.
Well, yeah, we'll see what it looks like in like a month and a half, how long we can go then.
Taking my victory lap right now.
Yeah. Go Knicks.
Go Knicks. Hopefully they win. We will talk to you later. Bye for now.